There we go. I'm not seeing it yet on my phone here, so I'm monitoring it. There we go. There's a long delay, or am I live or I'm not live? Okay. Awesome. All right, shalom, everyone. It's amazing how 5 people can echo in a big room. Awesome. You're all going to do a lot of work tonight because there's only like so many of you, and we're going to need to do some things. Well, there we go. So it's working. All right, so if you have a phone, you want to go ahead and turn it to silent. Okay, just make sure we have that taken care of. Welcome all of you that are on the live stream, and welcome to those of you that are here to the Tuesday night Torah study. Okay, and so we will be going through this week's Torah portion here. To those of you on the live stream, I know most of you are part of the group and you understand what we do, but if you're new, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of prayer time. After the prayer time, we're going to go ahead and read this week's Torah portion, and we have a double. There was no response. We have a double. Woo, yay! Well, you're supposed to be excited about a double portion. Okay, so we have a double, and we're going to also be concluding the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. So that's also another big excitement. And of course, we're also going to discuss how the world as we know it has changed, okay? It's the end of the world as we know it. Okay, anyway, because the world as we know it has definitely changed quite a bit, and we'll talk about how that might affect things in terms of our interactions and assemblies and gatherings and that kind of stuff. So we'll definitely talk about that. We'll do that probably at the beginning after we do some prayer time, and hopefully most people will already be on for that part of it. We may, actually, Manny, we usually have the most people on at the discussion part after the readings. Okay, so we'll wait until after we read, and then I'll get into all of that. It'll be easier. Make sure that we have everybody here. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And the way we start is we deal with prayer time. So if you have a praise report or a prayer need, you can raise your hand, and we'll get Sarah Beth to walk around with the microphone. You can just hold it for them, I guess. Okay, and if you're online, Manny is watching and handling the live stream desk. I assume we have Mr. Kurt on there as well, yes? Okay, so Kurt and Manny are your leadership in there, Kurt being the senior leader in the room, and so please respect his leadership in the room. Okay, Manny's here with the mic, so he'll be reading things out loud as we need to do that. Anybody here have a praise or prayer that they need to deal with at this time? Raise your hand, and Sarah Beth will bring around the microphone. Okay. I was surprised it took you that long to get your hand up. Okay, I see how it is. All right, Mr. Chuck, go ahead.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
And my praise report is my son Meek is here, and I'm super elated. So, yes.
Sometimes there's the peripheral benefit to like things being different in the world, and then people not having school or whatever it is, and they get to travel and show up and do cool things like that. So that's really good. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Sarah Beth?
Just asking for prayer. People in my blood family freaking out about all this and making silly decisions or decisions that may impact them. Just that Yah would give them wisdom and that His will be done.
Okay, amen. Anyone else? All right. We stalled as long as we could for you, Manny, and now you're getting the microphone so we can go to you. That's okay. We'll give you a minute while you put that together. And again, for those of you that are just coming onto the live stream, and now I know we've got, about 160 people on the live stream, so we will be definitely talking about the whole coronavirus thing and how that's affecting gatherings within the body and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, Manny, go ahead.
Okay. I'm pretty loud. Okay, I'm just going to read them as they pop up because I don't think there's too many, but they're coming in slowly. Okay, Yazguru, could you please ask for prayer for guidance and a job that would honor Yah? Michelle Perez, prayers for all of us to have continued shalom and emunah and to stay strong and encouraged.
Hey, hold on, Manny. Marty, what's the slider for Manny's mic? You found it? Okay, never mind.
You got me? Awesome. Good old Chuck. He's back. Shaquez Lee, praise for the shalom that I have considering current events. Many unspoken prayers as well. Chris Robbins, pray for every nation now under this virus. Pete and Brenda Lamb, prayers for Brenda and I as we are under quarantine. Pete was exposed to someone who tested positive for COVID-19 last Thursday, but no symptoms yet. Anonymous Mom, praise for our wonderful leadership, voice of reason among the madness. We appreciate y'all so much. Selena, just wanted to mention that everybody handling the MTOI Academy is awesome and doing a great job. Rich and Lena Payne, praying for our father undergoing cancer treatment. Prayers going out to Alice Corey. Dave and I are home for 14 days. We have some symptoms. Give me a second. This thing just jumped. Okay, here we go. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, prayers for widows and elderly in our congregation. Sense of isolation can be real and painful. Praising Father for his amazing provision. We love you all. Robert Hogg, prayers for Rabbi Tom and loved ones for good health and strength and all those at MTOI. Melissa Rogers, prays for MTOI and live stream during this mess. Carrie Ann, please pray for healing concerning the bad pain in my right knee, and Yah, keep us all safe from the virus. Philip Mason, praise Yahweh for provisions and blessings during these times. Sonoman Joe, pray for God's shalom to heal my brain and mind from this Parkinson's. Santi Lee, pray for bearing witness of Torah observance from U.S. and Canada. Canada is in state of emergency. Stephen Waffle, I will ask for prayer here. Gwen's 1 year passing, and the kids aren't going to be coming for Passover. Give me 1 second. This thing jumped again. Melissa Mueller, prayer for her husband so that he can get some sleep. Robert Wyatt, continued prayers for Olivia's healing of asthma issues. Anita A. has a praise report. She has toilet paper.
Don't let that get out too much. People may attack your house because you have toilet paper. So.
Well played. Well played. Helen, shalom, I pray. Let's see. I have been off work, being a school bus driver, not getting paid, and I have a son. I have to do the homeschooling. Pray that I can do a great job. Evangeline, healing for the whole world. Seeking His truth, please pray for continued healing of my son Justin. He was just in an accident last week and that should have killed him. Praise Yah for his mercy and grace. Angelique Ewing, prayers for heart and mind coherence during this uncertain time. It jumped on me again. Robert Wyatt again, prayer for our oldest daughter who is in RN. Safe travels from Jim and Lynn. Safe travels for our sisters from Urbana. MTOI Urbana. Prayer for the Calendar family as Ben has become ill. Also for travel protection as Ken and Teresa Atkins are going to TN to bring her dad home. Gail Pease, prayers for my brother recovering from total knee replacement. The witness asking MTOI to pray that my father returns back to the ways of Yahweh. I live in Key Largo, Florida, and you are all my family. John McCormick, prayers for the ones affected by the virus and the people who are causing the panic. Also prayers for our new business that is being affected by this virus. All right, and that pretty much does it. A lot of unspoken prayers regarding what's going on right now.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead and add a few things here. Of course, we want to pray for those that have been in touch with us since we last got together, which was for Shabbat. And I do want to also add, both my children are dealing with something that has nothing to do with coronavirus. They've been dealing with more of a stomach thing or something. So just keep them in prayer. So Stephen is home, but Brianna's feeling better, so she's here. That's just my normal thing. Don't worry about that. Okay. And also to pray for the Rebbitzin, who will be leaving tomorrow to travel to be with her father, who's down in Florida and 90 and by himself, and probably doesn't even know there's a coronavirus. He's got a television that's with an antenna that gets barely 2 channels. Okay, no internet, doesn't even know how to use one, wouldn't know how to use a computer. So he's blissfully unaware that there's a coronavirus. He doesn't go out, doesn't do anything. So Rebbitzin will be there to take care of him. And so just pray that she gets there safely and is able to provide his needs. And then she'll stay there until hopefully one of her siblings comes to relieve her of that duty and takes over. So anyway, so she'll be down there for a little bit. All right, and of course, we do want to pray, as has been stated already, for all those that are being affected, not necessarily directly only by this, we'll call it a crisis, I guess, or whatever, but a lot of the peripheral effects of it, businesses and all the other inconveniences that are going on because of this. So everybody's being affected one way or the other. And we'll talk much more about that during the time after we finish the reading, and we'll have, hopefully we'll have as many people as we will get in the room. So if you're in the room now, please, wait for the end of the reading or come back if you have to go and then come back. But we will be dealing with and talking about, our plans and how we're going to address the ongoing situation. So we'll be dealing with that after we finish the reading. So let's go ahead and have someone go ahead and open us in prayer. And you go get the mic. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll let Richard start us off.
Oh, awesome Abba Father, we do thank you that you are truly our awesome Abba Father. We ask that you continue to bring that shalom to us as a body and as a family, and help us to bring that to the rest of the world, because we know that you are in charge and you have all things under control. So Father, we ask that you help us to be a good witness tonight, that we go through the Torah study with our eyes and ears wide open so we can get what you have for us. We pray this in the name of your Son, Yeshua, Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, so we've got 7 chairs up here. We actually have quite a bit of reading to do today. Okay. And I will cover announcements at the same time that I cover the things dealing with the coronavirus stuff. So we'll wait and do the announcements until after we do the readings. But we do have 2 Torah portions to cover. We got Vayakhel, which means, and he assembled. And that's going to cover Shemot, or Exodus 35 through 38:20. All right, and then we have Pekudei, which will take us from Exodus 38:21 to the end of Exodus. Okay? So I've got 13 readings, so we may go through the chairs more than once, but let's go ahead and fill them in. And we'll go ahead and get through Vayakhel first, so we need 7 people for that, and then we'll need 6 for the next one. And don't leave an empty spot. Rabbi Tom's not here tonight, so we're just going to literally fill up the chairs for all the needs that we have today. Okay? All right, so we're going to get 7 for this one, and I think we have 7 chairs, and then we'll, if people need to read more than once, that's fine. You can read more than once. Okay, so the way this will work is I will call you up. I will say a traditional blessing over you for coming up to read, and then I'll tell you what verses you're going to read to and from, etc. And then you'll go ahead and do the reading, and then we'll bring up the next person. Okay, let's go ahead and start with Mr. Chuck. Come on up here, Chuck. Actually, let me put this aside here. Actually, you know what? I'll just keep adjusting the stand, and we'll do it that way. That'll minimize the passing of the mic between everybody. Now, everybody who comes up to read has to be my height, so I don't have to adjust the microphone, okay? Hey, that worked. That's not too bad. All right. See? We're going with a good start. Okay, let me just move some stuff around here. I'm just going to leave it up here. Nobody's going to touch anything, so we'll wipe it after everybody's gone. As long as nobody touches it, it should be fine. Okay? Otherwise, we're going to end up getting a bunch of alcohol into the mic. Don't really want to do that. Okay. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Mr. Chuck, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to get us started here in chapter 35 and read verses 1 through 19. Okay.
And Moshe assembled all the congregation of the children of Israel and said to them, "These are the words which Yah has commanded you to do. Work is done for 6 days, but on the 7th day it shall be set apart to you, a Sabbath of rest to Yahweh. Anyone doing work on it is put to death. Do not kindle a fire in any of your dwellings on the Sabbath day." And Moshe spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "This is the word which Yahweh commanded, saying, take from among you a contribution to Yahweh. Everyone whose heart so moves, let him bring it as a contribution to Yahweh, gold and silver and bronze, and blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine linen and goat's hair, and ram skins dyed red, and fine leather and acacia wood, and oil for the light, and spices for the anointing oil and for the sweet incense, and shahoam stones, and stones to be set in the shoulder garment and in the breastplate. And let all the wise-hearted among you come and make all that Yahweh has commanded. The dwelling place, its tent and its coverings, its hooks and its boards, its bars, its columns, and its sockets, the ark and its poles, the lid of atonement, and the veil of the covering, the table and its poles, and all its utensils, and the showbread, and the lampstand for the light, and its utensils, and its lamps, and the oil for the light, and the incense slaughter place, and its poles, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the covering for the door at the entrance of the dwelling place. The slaughter place of ascending offering with its bronze grating and its poles, and all its utensils, the basin and its stand. The screens of the courtyard, its columns and their sockets, and the covering for the gate of the courtyard. The pegs of the dwelling place, and the pegs of the courtyard, and their cords. The woven garments to do service in the set-apart place, the set-apart garments for Aharon, the priest, and the garments of his sons to serve as priests.
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, next up, Meek. Come on up. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Meek, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 20 to the end of chapter 35.
Okay, so I don't know what to say. I was reading ahead just a little bit.
So from 20 to the end of
35.
the end of the chapter. Yep.
Okay.
I'll kind of bring this up a little bit for you.
All right. And all the congregation of the children of Israel withdrew from the presence of Moses. And everyone whose heart lifted him up and everyone whose spirit moved him came. And they brought the contribution of Yahweh for the work of the tent of appointment, and for all its services, and for the set-apart garments. And they came, both men and women, all whose hearts moved them, and brought earrings, and nose rings, and rings of necklaces, all golden goods, even every one who made a wave offering of gold to Yahweh. And every man with whom was found blue and purple, and scarlet material, and fine linen, and goat's hair, and ram skin, dyed red, fine leather, brought them. Everyone who made a contribution to Yahweh of silver or bronze brought it. And everyone with whom was found, don't know that word. Acacia, thank you. Acacia wood for any work of the service, and brought it. And all the wise-hearted women spun yarn with their hands, and brought what they had spun, the blue and the purple, and the scarlet material, and the fine linen. And all the women whose hearts lifted them up in wisdom spun the goat's hair. And the rulers brought, help me, Shoham, thank you. And all the rulers brought Shoham stones, and the stones to be set in the shoulder garment, and in the breastplate, and the spices and the oil for the light, and for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense. The children of Israel brought a voluntary offering to Yahweh, and all the men and women whose hearts moved them to bring all kinds of work which Yahweh, by the hand of Moshe, had commanded to be done. And Moshe said to the children of Israel, see, Yahweh has called by name, Betzalel, son of Uri, and son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah, and he has filled him with spirit of Elohim, and in wisdom and in understanding, and in knowledge and in all work, to make designs, to work in gold, and silver, and in bronze, and in cutting stones for setting and carving wood, and to work in all workmanship of design. He has put in his heart the ability to teach in him and help. Say that again. Aholiab, son of, help me, Ahisamach, and the tribe of Dan. He has filled them with the skill to do all work of the engraver and designer of embroider, in blue and purple, and in scarlet material, and in fine linen, and a weaver doing any work and makers of design.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Amen. Amen. By the way, we have a couple of choices. You can either ask my help, you can phone a friend, or you can. No, I'm kidding. That was a different thing. That wasn't a Torah study. Okay. We could poll the audience. All right. To pronounce the names if you need help. By the way, you are allowed, if you would just prefer to just butcher the names, that's fine too. Usually that's what most people do, so that's okay. Okay. Sarah Beth, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. All right, take us into chapter 36 and read the first 19 verses. That's probably okay for you.
And Betzalel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man, in whom Yahweh has given wisdom and understanding to know how to do all the work for the service of the set-apart place, shall do according to all that Yahweh has commanded. And Moshe called Bezalel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man in whose heart Yahweh had given wisdom, everyone whose heart lifted him up, to come and do the work. And they received from Moshe all the contribution which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of the making of the set-apart place. But they still brought to him voluntary offerings every morning. So all the craftsmen who were doing all the work of the set-apart place came, each from the work he was doing. And they spoke to Moshe, saying, "The people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which Yahweh commanded us to do." Then Moshe commanded, and they sent this word throughout the camp, saying, "Let neither man nor woman do any more work for the contribution of the set-apart place." And the people were withheld from bringing. For what they had was enough for all the work to be done, more than enough. Then all the wise-hearted ones among them who worked in the dwelling place made 10 curtains woven of fine linen and blue and purple and scarlet material. They made them with cherubim, the work of skilled workmen. The length of each curtain was 28 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits, all the curtains having one measure. And he joined 5 curtains, one to another, and another 5 curtains he joined one to another. And he made loops of blue on the edge of the end curtain of one set, and the same he did on the edge of the end curtain of the other set. 50 loops he made on one curtain, and 50 loops he made on the edge of the end curtain of the second set. The loops held one curtain to another. And he made 50 hooks of gold, and joined the curtains to each other with the hooks. And the dwelling place became one. And he made curtains of goat's hair for the tent over the dwelling place. He made 11 curtains. The length of each curtain was 30 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits, the 11 curtains having one measure. And he joined 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. And he made 50 loops on the edge of the end curtain on one set, and 50 loops he made on the edge of the curtain of the second set. And he made 50 bronze hooks to join the tent to be one. And he made a covering for the tent of ram's skin dyed red, and a covering of fine leather above that.
All right, amen. Amen. Okay, move on. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may you bless Brianna, who's called on to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Brianna, you're going to take us now from verse 20 to verse 38, the end of the chapter.
And for the dwelling place he made boards of acacia wood standing up. The length of each board was 10 cubits, and the width of each board 1.5 cubits. Each board had 2 tenons for binding one to another. So he did to all the boards of the dwelling place. And he made boards for the dwelling place, 20 boards for the south side. And he made 40 sockets of silver to go under the 20 boards, and 2 sockets under each of the boards for its 2 tenons. And for the other side of the dwelling place, for the north side, he made 20 boards, and their 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under the one board, and 2 sockets under the other board. And he made 6 boards for the west side of the dwelling place. And he made 2 boards for the 2 back corners of the dwelling place. And they were double beneath, and similarly, they were complete to the top by 1 ring. So he did to the both of them for the 2 corners. And there were 8 boards, and their silver sockets, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under each of the boards. And he made bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards on the one side of the dwelling place, and 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the dwelling place, and 5 bars for the boards of the dwelling place at the rear westward. And he made the middle bar to pass through the boards from one end to the other. And he overlaid the boards with gold, and their rings he made of gold to be holders for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. And he made a veil of blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine worked linen. It was made with cherubim, the work of a skilled workman. For he made 4 columns of acacia wood for it, and overlaid them with gold. with their hooks of gold, and he cast 4 sockets of silver for them. And he made a covering for the tent door of blue and purple and scarlet material and fine woven linen made by a weaver, and its 5 columns with their hooks. And he overlaid their tops and their rings with gold, but their 5 sockets were of bronze.
Amen, amen. Excellent job, darling. Okay. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shannon, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Shannon, you're going to take us now into chapter 37 and read verses 1 through 15. I'm still going to need 2 more readers.
1 through 15.
1 through 15.
And Bezalel made the ark of the acacia wood and 2.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. And he overlaid it with clean gold, inside and outside, and made a molding of gold all around it. And he cast 4 rings of gold for its 4 feet, and 2 rings on its one side, and 2 rings on its other side. And he made poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he put the poles into the rings at the sides of the ark to lift the ark. And he made a lid of atonement of clean gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. And he made 2 cherubim of beaten gold, and he made them from the 2 ends of the lid of atonement, 1 cherub at one end on this side, and the other cherub at the other end on that side. He made the cherubim from the lid of atonement from the 2 ends. The cherubim spread out their wings above and covered the lid of atonement with their wings, with their faces toward each other. The faces of the cherubim were turned toward the lid of atonement. And he made the table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long and 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. And he overlaid it with clean gold, and made a molding of gold all around it. And he made a rim of a handbreadth all around it, and made a molding of gold for the rim all around it. And he cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put the rings on the 4 corners that were at its 4 legs. And the rings were next to the rim as holders for the poles to lift the table. And he made the poles of acacia wood to lift the table, and overlaid them with gold.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Shan. Okay. Gabe, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Gabe, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. See, I'm so used to reaching out and putting my hand on their shoulder when I do this. It's very hard. I'm glad Brianna came up so I could do that, and then you'll come up, and that's be good. At least I'll have my family up here. Okay, so Gabe, you're going to take us now from verse 16 to the end of chapter 37. Okay, from 16 to the end of the chapter. All right. Right there. Good.
And he made the utensils which were on the tables, its dishes, and its cups, and its bowls, and its jars for pouring of clean gold. And he made the lampstand of clean gold. He made the lampstand of beaten work, its base, and its shaft, and its cups, and its ornamental knobs, and its blossoms were from it. And 6 branches came out of its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand out of one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand out of the other. There were 3 cups like almond flowers on one branch, with ornamental knob and blossom, and 3 cups like almond flowers on the other branch, a knob and a blossom. So for the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand, and on the lampstand were 4 cups like almond flowers, its knobs and blossoms, and a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, for the 6 branches coming out of it. Their knobs and their branches were of it. All of it was one beaten work of clean gold. And he made its 7 lamps and its snuffers and its trays of clean gold. He made it of a talent of clean gold and all its utensils. And he made the incense slaughter of place of acacia wood, 1 cubit long and 1 cubit wide, square, and 2 cubits high. Its horns were of it. And he overlaid it with clean gold, its top and its sides all around, and its horns, and he made a molding for it of gold all around it. And he made 2 rings of gold for it under its molding at its 2 corners on the both sides, as holders for the poles with which to lift it. And he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. And he made the set-apart atoning oil and the clean incense of sweet spices according to the work of the perfumer.
Amen. Amen. All right, Rebbitz and Julie. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebbitz and Julie, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, she's going to be the final reader for this Torah portion. I'm going to need 6 readers for the next one. So we can go fill those seats again with 6 readers. If you read, you can read again. Okay? Okay, so take us now into chapter 38 and read verses 1 through 20.
And he made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide, square, and 3 cubits high. And he made its horn on its 4 corners. The horns were of it, and he overlaid it with bronze. And he made all the utensils for the altar, the pots and the shovels and the basins and the forks and the fire holders. He made all its utensils of bronze. And he made a grating for the altar, a bronze network under its rim, midway from the bottom. And he cast 4 rings for the 4 corners of the bronze grating as holders for the poles. And he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. And he put the poles into the rings on the sides of the altar with which to lift it. He made the altar hollow with boards. And he made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze from the bronze mirrors of the serving women who did service at the door of the tent of meeting. And he made the courtyard for the south side. The screens of the courtyard were of fine woven linen, 100 cubits long. There were 20 columns and their 20 sockets of bronze. The hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver. And for the north side, the screens were 100 cubits long, their 20 columns and their 20 sockets of bronze. The hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver. And for the west side, there were screens of 50 cubits, their 10 columns and their 10 sockets. The hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver. And for the east side, eastward, 50 cubits. 50 cubits of screens on the one side with their 3 columns and their 3 sockets. And 15 cubits of screens the other side of the courtyard, on this side and on that side with their 3 columns and their 3 sockets. All the screens of the courtyard all around were of fine woven linen. And the sockets for the columns were of bronze. The hooks of the columns and their bands were of silver, and the overlay of their tops was of silver. And all the columns of the courtyard had bands of silver. What verse? To the end? And the covering for the gate of the courtyard was the work of an embroiderer, of blue and purple and scarlet material, and of fine woven linen, and 20 cubits long. And the height along its width was 5 cubits, corresponding to the screens of the courtyard. And the columns were 4, and their sockets of bronze 4. Their hooks were of silver, and the overlay of their tops and their bands was of silver. And all the pegs of the dwelling place and of the courtyard all around were of bronze.
Amen. Amen. Actually, come back up here for a second. As we wrap this part up, and we're going to go into the next one, okay, my wife has helped put together a tremendous MTOI program for the Parsha Pearls, and this is the one where they can build the model.
I brought it.
Oh, you brought the model?
Can I show it?
Yes, you
later?
can. You can show it later.
I'll
So,
show you after, yeah.
okay. Actually, if you set it up on that table, we might be able to bring a camera over there. Marty, if we put the model tabernacle that's part of the craft on that table, can we get the camera on it later? Okay, wonderful. But I'll tell you what, she can also tell you about how wonderfully challenging it is when you're reading stuff that was written at a time when it was understood by those who were putting it together to try to understand, okay, this is the columns, and it says that this is a board, and this one goes all the way through, the other ones don't go, what does that actually look like? And if you look for pictures of these things by like Google Images, you'll find 15, 20 different ways that people think it could have looked. And it's very challenging to lay these things out. But in this week's Parsha Pearls, which we posted yesterday, there is a craft to do where you can actually make a model of the tabernacle. Okay, and it's to scale. Okay, so it's beautiful to scale. Okay, now it is a scale down to something small. It's not going to be bigger than your house, and don't have to worry about that. We're actually going to put it on this table over here, and you'll get to see it. But it is to scale, and it's just fantastic. And it's a craft that you can put together yourself. You can put it together with your children, and you'll really enjoy it. Okay, now we're up into the Pekudei, the next Torah portion. Okay, and you guys change seats. Okay, Sarah Beth, come on up. And what's good is I prayed over all of you except Kathy, so I could skip that part. And we're going to have you now take us from verse 21 to the end of the chapter.
These were the appointments of the dwelling place of the witness, which was appointed by the command of Moshe for the service of the Levites by the hand of Itamar, son of Aharon the priest. And Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah, made all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And with him Aholiab, son of Ahasmach, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver and designer, an embroiderer in blue, and purple, and scarlet material, and in fine linen. All the gold prepared for the work, in all the work of the set-apart place, and it was the gold of the wave offering, came to be 29 talents, and 730 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place. And the silver from the ones counted of the was 100 talents, and 1,775 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place. A bekah, half a shekel for a head, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, for everyone passing over to those counted, from 20 years old and above, for 603,550 men. And the 100 talents of silver were for the casting of the sockets of the set-apart place, and the base of the veil, 100 sockets, from the 100 talents, a talent for each socket. And of the 1,775 shekels he made hooks for the columns, and overlaid their tops, and made bands for them. And the bronze of the wave offering was 70 talents, and 2,400 shekels. And with it he made the sockets for the door of the tent of meeting, and the bronze altar, and the bronze grating for it, and all the utensils for the altar, and the sockets for the the sockets for the courtyard all around, and the bases for the courtyard gate, and all the pegs for the dwelling place, and all the pegs for the courtyard all around.
All right, amen, amen. Okay, next up, Brianna. Okay, you're going to take us now into chapter 39 and read verses 1 through 14.
And of the blue and purple and scarlet material they made woven garments to do service in the set-apart place. And they made the set-apart garments which were for Aharon, and as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he made the shoulder garment of gold, of blue and purple and scarlet material, and of fine woven linen. And they beat out sheets of gold and cut it into threads to cut it in with the blue and purple and scarlet material and the fine linen, the work of a skilled workman. They made shoulder pieces for it to join it. It was joined at its two edges, and the embroidered band of his shoulder garment that was on it was of the same work of gold, and blue and purple and scarlet material, and of fine woven linen, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And they made the shoham stones, set in plated work of gold, engraved as signets are engraved according to the names of the sons of Israel. As he put them on the shoulders of the shoulder garment, stones of remembrance for the sons of Israel, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he made the breastplate a work of a skilled workman, like the work of the shoulder garment, of gold, of blue, and purple, and scarlet material, and of fine woven linen. It was square, They made the breastplate double, its length a span, its width a span, doubled, and they filled it with 4 rows of stones. A robe of ruby, a topaz, and an emerald was the first row, and the second row a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond, and the third row a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst, and the fourth row a beryl, a shoham, and a jasper, setted in plated work of gold in their settings. And the stones were according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, engraved like a signet, each one with its own name according to the 12 tribes.
Amen, amen. Okay, Kathy? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Kathy, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May it set apart one, bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 15 to verse 26.
And they made braided chains of corded work for the breastplate at the ends of clean gold. And they made 2 settings of gold and 2 gold rings, and put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. And they put the 2 cords of gold in the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. And the 2 ends of the 2 cords they fastened in the 2 settings and put them on the shoulder pieces of the shoulder garment in the front. And they made 2 rings of gold and put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate, on the edge of it, which was on the inward side of the shoulder garment. And they made 2 gold rings and put them on the 2 shoulder pieces, underneath the shoulder garment on the front of it, close to its seam above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment. And they bound the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the shoulder garment with a blue cord, so that it would be above the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and that the breastplate would not come loose from the shoulder garment, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he made the robe of the shoulder garment of woven work, olive blue, and the opening of the robe was in the middle, like the opening in a scaled armor, with a woven binding all around the opening, so that it would not tear. And they made it on the hem of the robe, pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet material twined. And they made bells of clean gold and put the bells between the pomegranates on the hem of the robe, all around between the pomegranates. A bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe, for the service as Yahweh had commanded Moshe.
Amen. Okay, Shannon. Manny, do you want to read? All right, we can get you up after Shannon. Oh, you want to read? Okay, good. That's all right. All right, so then we'll let you be last. Okay, because we got 3 more, so we'll have Shannon, then Gabe, then Manny. Okay, here we go. Shannon, you're going to take us now from verse 27 to the end of chapter 39.
And they made the lawn, And they made the lawn shirt of fine linen, the work of a weaver, for Aharon and his sons, and a turban of fine linen, and the turban ornaments of fine linen, and short trousers of fine woven linen, and a girdle of fine woven linen with blue and purple and scarlet material, the work of an embroiderer, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And they made the plate of the set-apart sign of the dedication of clean gold, and wrote on it an inscription like the engraving of a signet, set apartness to Yahweh. And they put on it a blue cord to fasten it above on the turban, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And the work of the dwelling place of the tent of appointment was completed. And the children of Israel did according to all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe, so they did. And they brought the dwelling place to Moshe, the tent and all its furnishings, its hooks, its boards, its bars, and its columns, and its sockets. and the covering of ram skins dyed red, and the covering fine leather, and the veil of the covering. The ark of the witness with its poles and the lid of atonement, and the table and all its utensils and the showbread, and the clean lampstand with its lamps. The lamps to be put in order, and all its utensils and the oil for light, and the slaughter place of gold, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the covering for the tent door. The bronze slaughter place and its bronze grating, its poles and all its utensils. The basin with its stand, the screens of the courtyard, its columns and its sockets, the covering for the courtyard gate, its cords and its pegs, and all the utensils for the service of the dwelling place, for the tent of appointment, the woven garments to do service in the set-apart place, the set-apart garments for Aharon the priest, and his sons' garments to serve as priests. According to all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe, to the children of Israel did all the work. And Moshe looked over all the work and saw they did it as Yahweh had commanded. So they had done, and Moshe blessed them.
Amen. All right, Gabe, come on up. All right, you're going to take us now from verse 1 in chapter 40 now, from 1 to 17.
And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, on the first day of the first new moon, you are to raise up the dwelling place of the tent of appointment, and shall put it in the ark of the witness, and screen the ark with the veil. And you shall bring in the table and arrange what belongs on it, and bring in the lampstand and light its lamps. And you shall set the slaughter place of gold for the incense before the ark of the witness, and put up the covering of the door to the dwelling place. And you shall set the slaughter place of the ascending offering before the door of the dwelling place of the tent of appointment, and shall set the basin between the tent of appointment and the slaughter place, and shall put water therein. And you shall set up the courtyard all around, and shall place the covering of the courtyard gate, and shall take the atoning oil and anoint the dwelling place and all that is in it, and shall set it all its utensils apart. It shall be set apart. And you shall anoint the slaughter place of the ascending offering and all its utensils, and set the slaughter place apart, and the slaughter place shall be most set apart. And you shall anoint the basin and its stand, and set it apart. And you shall bring Aaron and his sons to the door of the tent of appointment, and wash them with water, and you shall put the set-apart garments on Aaron, and atone him, and set him apart to serve as priest to me. And you shall bring his sons, and put long shirts on them, and shall anoint them as you anointed their father, and they shall serve as priests to me, and their anointing shall be for them an everlasting priesthood throughout their generations. And Moshe did according to all that Yahweh had commanded him, so he did. And it came to be in the first new moon of the second year, on the first day of the new moon, that the dwelling place was raised up. And Moshe raised up the dwelling place and placed its socks and set up its... Nope. So we're done?
Yep. Okay. Amen. 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 All right, Manny, come up and finish us out. Good job, Gabe. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Manny, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us from verse 18 and close out the chapter, close out the book of Exodus. Amen.
18. And Moshe raised up the dwelling place and placed its sockets, and set up its boards, and put in its bars, and raised up its columns, and spread the tent over the dwelling place, and put the covering of the tent on top of it, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he took the witness and put it into the ark, And he put the poles through the rings of the ark, and put the lid of atonement on top of the ark, and brought the ark unto the dwelling place, and placed the veil of covering to screen off the ark of the witness, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the table in front of the tent of appointment, and on the north side of the dwelling place, outside the veil, and he set the bread in order upon it before Yahweh, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the lampstand in the tent of appointment, opposite the table, on the south side of the dwelling place, and lit the lamps before Yahweh as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the gold slaughter place in the tent of appointment in front of the veil, and burned sweet incense on it as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he set up the covering to the door of the dwelling place. And he put the slaughter place of the ascending offering before the door of the dwelling place of the tent of appointment, and offered it upon the ascending offering and the grain offering as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he put the basin between the tent of appointment and the slaughter place, and put water therein for washing. And Moshe and Aharon and his sons washed their hands and their feet with the water from it. And they went into the tent of appointment. As they came near the slaughter place, they would wash as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he raised up the courtyard all around the dwelling place and the slaughter place, and placed the covering of the courtyard gate. And Moshe completed the work. And the cloud covered the tent of appointment, and the esteem of Yahweh filled the dwelling place. And Moshe was not able to come into the tent of appointment, because the cloud dwelt on it, and the esteem of Yahweh filled the dwelling place. And when the cloud was taken up from above the dwelling place, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of Yahweh was on the dwelling place by day, and fire was on it by night, before the eyes of all the house of Israel in all their journeys. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Excellent job, everyone who read today. Okay, fantastic. Okay, the traditional closing blessing. Actually, before we do that, I guess we should do the chazak. We just finished the book. Tradition has it that when you finish reading one of the books in your Torah cycle that you say, chazak, chazak, v'nitzazek, which means be strong, and may we be strengthened by reading and understanding and receiving of the word. Amen? Amen. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. Okay. So, again, we just got to the point now where we have concluded. We've got a lot more people in the room there on the live stream as I was sort of monitoring it here. So let's go ahead and go through some announcements and deal with some of the things that we've been dealing with before we go into the discussion portion. We will discuss what we just read, so have your notes ready. A lot of what we covered in other Torah portions because this is the repeating of the information to a certain degree. But let's just go ahead and cover some announcements real quickly. So, for those of you that are on the live stream and you're not usually with us, we do this every week on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We also stream our Shabbat service on Saturdays. We're going to talk a little bit more about how that may be affected by things, but we still will be streaming, so that part we can at least tell you at this point. Now, for the Torah portion, if you want to get a camera to go over and catch that, I want to show everybody your project there. Okay, so we have, in addition to our Tuesday night studies, we have a program for the children. It's called Parsha Pearls, and it's a program in which the children get to learn the weekly Torah portion at their level. It is a very, very in-depth, robust program. It includes crafts, it includes a song, it includes word searches and Hebrew word flashcards and a discussion, obviously, of that week's Torah portion and questions to see how much they paid attention and if they understood it. And this is the craft for the Torah portions that we just covered with the the scale model of the tabernacle. Okay, we're not seeing it on this screen, but they're seeing it live on their thing, I believe, so. Okay, I do not see on my screen it's moving there, but that's because I'm on a delay. I'm sure it's working fine. You got that good, Tommy? Okay, it's coming out good there. All right. No, if she lifts it up, everything will start to move around. It's not, they're not glued down or anything, but that's okay. That's a very well, listen, it's the scale, and so you can think about how big the tent of meeting was. All right, thank you for that. Awesome job. Okay, so the next leadership meeting for the leaders that are on will be on Sunday. So we just had an emergency one last Sunday, but we'll have another one this Sunday. We'll talk about what came out of that. The rest of the announcements actually sort of kind of go based on what we're going to talk about next. Let's just go ahead and deal with the coronavirus, the COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, sort of crisis that's going on now, okay? So, see if I can get my notes out here where I can actually see them. The microphone, I'm used to having a headset on at this point. Here we go. Okay, so for those of you that are aware, we do have a school here. We call it MTOI Academy. We did close our academy as of yesterday, and so the children are doing the program through online interaction. The teachers are interacting with them and keeping track of things, and they have ways to submit their projects. So our school has also, as many of the other ones have, has closed until this thing passes, and we're given different guidance. Now, in saying all of that, I'm a little frustrated with our governor here, and I don't know if I should be or not, but I mean, our governor is one of the few that have not actually made a decision as far, well, I think they made a decision with the schools, they didn't make a decision with gathering sizes. Okay, so we don't have anything specific. They are hinting very strongly that we should be following the CDC guidelines. Well, the CDC is now pushing things as small as 10, okay, for maximums. They were pushing for 50, and now we're seeing it go even lower. We have a group in Wisconsin, and I was informed, and I checked the website, they are now limited to 10. Okay, so a lot of the groups, a lot of places are now starting to go down to that small, okay? So that being said, Beth Shalom here, the building and the congregation here, we are going to be, working with the staff. It's a very, small staff that still comes in on a regular basis, and we'll do the things that we do here. So that's only going to be about, 4 people that should be here most of the time, if at all. And we all have our own offices, so we're kind of all separated. Well, one husband and wife team has an office they share, but if they were home, they'd still be in the same building together either way. So. But we will have a staff here for some hours. If anybody has an emergency or needs us, we should be here. We are doing what we can to be able to work from home. We made sure that our computers are all set up so that we are all logged in through our cloud so that we can access the same things at home that we would here. Okay? Torah studies and Shabbat services. Okay, so we are going to be monitoring the situation very closely, and we'll make adjustments as needed. For right now, we don't generally get more than 20 or 25 people, or at the most 30, at a Torah study. If they decide to go with the 10, we'll have to shut that down and just do this in a more virtual way, which means that for all of you out there, what we would be doing is at least bringing in the camera team, Manny on the live stream, and be broadcasting, okay? So we'd only have about 7 or 8 people in here, and would be broadcasting. And so for right now, it's fine for you guys to keep coming, but we're going to make sure to also have, if there's any changes, we're going to try to get these things posted on the MTOI website, Facebook page. I don't know, we're not going to be able to put it on the website. We'll go to our Facebook page, or if you're not sure, call and contact us. The phone number here, which is 423-250-3020. That one does forward to one of the staff members, even if we're not here. So if we would roll it forward to somebody, would be on a rotating basis getting those phone calls. So if you call, you get a voicemail, and that's not going to work for you, then just wait a few minutes, call again. Eventually, hopefully, you'll get somebody, or leave us a voice message. We'll try to check them on a fairly regular basis. Okay, but we do expect to be spending some hours here. As far as, in case you're wondering whether or not, for example, like as we get towards Shabbat this week, okay? Now, I'm going to say at this point that I may be forced to make the call that we're going to have to do the same thing with Shabbat that we're doing for the Tuesdays, because if they're pushing for a CDC guidance, we have over 50 people that come on Shabbat. And so we're going to then have to encourage everyone to stay home. We'll have a small handful of people here to run the cameras. And, I may invite just a very small rotating group of people to sit, so I'm not talking to empty chairs, but that might just be like one family or something, just so I have somebody to look at when I'm preaching. Well, like I'll have the sound team and stuff, et cetera. But we have to be, this experience we're going through, let's kind of deal with this first, okay? The experience that we're going through is going to require patience. It's going to require emunah, belief, trust, faith. It's going to require shalom. Have peace. Don't get all stressed and frustrated and upset. We're also learning to deal with the fact that we are under Rome or under Babylon or whatever you want to call it, and we don't have a lot of authority over a lot of things. We've been very free up to this point, and now things are going on lockdown. And so we're finally going to get a little bit of a taste of what control and lockdown feels like. And part of that is that we're going to have to learn to comply with it to whatever degree we need to comply with it. Okay, thankfully at this point, we have technology that we can leverage. And so for those of you that are watching a live stream, if you no longer have a place to go to, if you're going to a local place on Shabbat, you will now know that you have a place you can at least virtually interact with, as we will still broadcast. The praise team has said that they would come in, so that would be another, just a couple of 5 or 6 other people. We'll play some music. There wouldn't be anybody dancing, but at least we'll have some music playing, and we'll be able to broadcast then a message and interact with you. We'll be able to take questions back and forth because we'll have people on the live stream desk. And so we'll have a very just skeletal crew down here just to kind of make sure we can get everything done. Okay. So, but as we're going through this, we are going to have to deal with the powers that be. Now, it's one thing if they are forcing us to not be able to keep a commandment. It's another thing if they're just forcing us to be more challenged in how we keep a commandment. Okay, we're not dealing with them telling us we can't keep Shabbat. They're just telling us because of the health issue, we can't do it in big groups. Okay, or even small groups, because there may be 10 or less. That's not a very big group. And so we're going to have to deal with their guidelines. Now, other states have made breaking these guidelines, once they made them a mandate, a Class 2 misdemeanor. Okay? Now, Tennessee at this point, I can't find it, I looked, has not yet made anything mandated. The initial thing on the 13th was no groups bigger than 250. Well, that's perfectly okay. We don't have 250 here ever. So, we're over a little over 100, maybe 125, but we don't have 250. But today, I listened to the governor in a daily briefing or whatever he does, and he was encouraging people to adhere to CDC guidelines. That didn't make it a law, and he didn't make it a mandate from the governor's office. But, guidance usually turns into mandate. Okay, so we are monitoring these things very closely. Passover, which you should have heard already, has been canceled, okay, as far as us going to North Carolina. Passover itself is not canceled, okay? But Passover, going as a group to North Carolina, to Ridgecrest, has been canceled. And that's because that state had guidance that then became mandate, okay? And so now that they've mandated that you can't have gatherings above 100, and the property already was trying to meet with the guidance before it was even mandated. There's no way we could have, almost 250 people split up into 3 different rooms and try to figure out how to have an event and rotate. It just would have been a nightmare. Plus, the way they were having to do the dining hall and everything else would have just been impossible. Okay? The last time my family went to the restaurant, to try to figure out how to comply with the guidance to have no more than 50% capacity in your space, literally had signs on every other table that said unavailable, which really wasn't a problem since we were almost the only ones in the place, okay? There was maybe 3 other tables, in the whole restaurant. So they had everybody spaced really far apart. Okay? But that's the world we're living in right now. This is a test. Not just a test for us. I think they're testing to see what we'll do and how much that can be done. And so we're observing and seeing as they're observing and seeing. Okay? So this is a test. So we need to be prepared for it. We, just so you know, so you can have confidence, hopefully. The leadership has been meeting on a regular basis. The local leadership met here yesterday. The full leadership council met as an emergency meeting on Sunday evening for about 3 hours. Okay, so, and everybody was in attendance. That is pretty much, that's a part of the MTOI leadership, worldwide. Except for those in South Africa, we'll be talking to them on the 22nd. And so we've had quite a lot of feedback from each one telling us what's going on in their particular part of U.S. or Canada and how things are going on. Canada, for example, locked down their borders. I don't know if you're aware of this. Only Canadians and Americans can go back and forth, nobody else. And so, these things are increasing as things go along, okay? So just as we're paying attention to the continuation of the lockdowns. People in certain states, like we have people in New Jersey that have, New Jersey's got curfews. This is the kind of stuff that we can maybe expect as well if the numbers start to go up. Now, bear in mind, we do not fear. But as we are watching this, the numbers will absolutely go up. Not because necessarily just it's getting worse, which it will, but because once they start testing, they'll know how many people actually have it. So it's not like the numbers are just going to go up because a lot more people have it. They're just going to have numbers to actually give us. So one way or the other, even if we completely lock down, the numbers are going to go up. Don't let that cause you to fear or panic. Okay? The numbers will go up. They've said that in their conferences. Not everybody's paying attention, but the numbers, no matter what we do, will go up. Because all the people that have it have not been counted yet. And so as they start counting, the numbers will go up. So don't let that cause fear, okay? And so the bigger ramifications of this is going to be the economic ones, and we'll see how it affects and how they handle all the people who, right now, they're all excited about not getting the disease. Well, we'll see what happens when they have trouble paying for their bills. I mean, bigger problems than finding toilet paper will be they'll be having, okay? It's unbelievable what people are literally beating each other up over toilet paper. If they wait, there will be plenty in the store. Okay? This is, unbelievable. And by the way, don't run out and buy tons of bread. Bread goes bad anyway. What are you going to do with 15 loaves of bread? You can't eat it all. If you freeze it, I don't know. I don't always love the way frozen bread tastes when you go to it just doesn't work as good as you think. If you've never done it, you think, I'll just freeze it. Okay, it's just not as good as you think. It works, but not great. Okay? And so, understand that. Now, so I don't want to make a call right this minute for our Shabbat service, but I'm right now, if I was leaning in a direction, I would say we are probably not going to have you come, okay? Because that's where they're headed. And so plan not to come. Plan to do this at home. We are planning to stream, okay? And I do expect you all to be there, those who would normally be here. Okay? If you have normally someplace else to go, that's nothing, but a different thing. But if you are Beth Shalom and normally would be here, I would expect you to be on the live stream. We are planning to stream. Now, that being said, so as far as getting the information out, we will, if we make those kind of decisions, we'll put a message on the phone. So when you call and you get the voice, it'll mention that we are, only streaming. It'll say something like, Beth Shalom services at this point is live stream only. It'll say something like that. Okay, do not come to the property for the service. Okay, right now you shouldn't be planning to come anyway because I'm thinking that's where we're going to have to go. We have a Beth Shalom Facebook group. We're having a challenge with people adding people to the Facebook group that aren't actually part of Beth Shalom. Okay, if people want information about what's happening here, that information will also be, if they need it, on the MTOI group page. Okay, so we've changed the protocols now. You can't add people, only Rebbitzin can. Or the admins, I think I can do it. So, okay, if you want to add somebody that we maybe have missed who is a part of the group. What do I mean by part of the group? Somebody who actively attends on a regular basis. That makes them a part of Beth Shalom, okay? If they attend here. That group is for the local group. Now, information about whether we're having services or not and those kind of things, that will be posted on the MTOI page because some people in MTOI come and visit here. Okay? But we were starting to have a challenge with people putting people into groups they don't belong in. Please don't be offended if you were one of them. We're not mad at you. And whoever you tried to add, they were just being added in the wrong place. They should be in the MTOI group. Okay? Because some things that happen here are really just for the local group. And so we want to have a place just to communicate with them. All right? So not everybody's here, not everybody's online, not everybody's watching, although we have almost 300 on there now. Okay, so that's a pretty good sized number. But share this with people as you talk to them and interact with them in our group, or those of you that are watching on live stream. If your congregation or assembly is shutting down because of the coronavirus situation and they are not streaming, you certainly have the ability to come and watch ours. Okay? All right, so that'll be available. If your local group that you normally attend is streaming, participate with your local group. Continue to support and be a part of that group. Okay, as whatever you normally would do. You can find out what they're doing. All right, if you need counseling, if you need any kind of help, you can still call us. We can still make appointments to try to meet with people as best we can. All right, so we're trying to not shut down completely, just like vital services, even in the government, are not shutting down, and other things like that are not shutting down. So we will try to make sure to make that available as far as setting up appointments. Okay, so now that brings us to Passover. Okay? So we don't have a place to go as a group. We've already told everybody that needs to make their adjustments. If you've already bought plane tickets, the airlines generally will credit you for those tickets. They may even refund them because of this, but they'll generally credit you those tickets and not charge you even a fee. At least we would assume that at this point because it's not your fault because of the coronavirus, okay? So go ahead and make those arrangements while it's still clear this is why you're doing it. And as far as people thinking they're just going to keep their tickets and then come here, there may not be anything here to come to. So you may want to change that thinking. Because I know some people are like, well, I'll just keep my ticket. I'll fly into Asheville or wherever they were going to fly into and then drive down here. Well, the guidance now has us not likely by April 8th to be allowed to have a group that big. Okay? And so, no, do not plan to come here as your alternative. Okay, now, as far as Passover is concerned, okay, so for all of unleavened bread, we'll broadcast for sure. But the Passover meal is a whole different deal, so we'll deal with that in a second. But we will be putting out, well, actually, I don't even know if I have to put out a schedule. It's very simple. We're going to broadcast on the 2 holy days and on the Sabbath as we normally do at 1 o'clock. Okay? If we could do any other type of broadcast, maybe I'll do a midrash that we could do virtually. I'll be here. We'll have somebody at the desk. We'll take questions. We'll do something like that. We might do something like that. The normal readings that we would do, we won't be able to do that. We won't have enough people to do it. I mean, we'd be reading 5 chapters of lots and lots. We would not have the wherewithal to do that. So what you're going to be able to do is every day during unleavened bread, and you should still be taking the time off if that's what you did. Okay, and after all, some of you are going to be forced to anyways. Businesses are slowing down or shutting down. We're not going to do anything till the afternoon, so that means that you get to sleep in and relax and enjoy a little bit. Get some rest, spend some time with your Father in the heavens, and spend time with your family and those kind of things, okay? And we'll try to do something in the afternoon. We'll try to broadcast as much as we can. I'm praying, if Abba would inspire other things that we could do that we could at least broadcast. Okay, and we'll maybe be able to broadcast some things. But for right now, at least, we will be broadcasting for the 2 holy days, the one on Thursday and the one on the following, Wednesday? Okay? Okay, we will be broadcasting, all right, on the 9th and on the 15th, okay? And we'll also be broadcasting on that Saturday, okay? So we'll have all of those things as normal. And we'll be doing them at the normal time, 1 o'clock, like we've been doing. Now, the Passover meal. Okay, so there's a book that some of you are familiar with that's usually used for Passover called the Haggadah. Okay, the Passover Haggadah. And it's used for what we call a Seder, or I lost my mic for a second. Okay, it's used for what we would normally call the Passover, the Seder, the Passover meal. So for your Passover meal, we will be uploading and making available the Haggadah, so if you need one, you'll have that, okay? The discussion that's being had right now is that we would do one of two things, and maybe both. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. One thing that we would likely do is that we would likely broadcast to those who are already coming. So if you're already coming, make sure that Stacia has a way to reach you. That's our events coordinator, also our accounting department head, but so that we can reach you, those that she already should have all the contact. We'll let you know that we are going to broadcast in a private video chat, like a private YouTube, where you'll have to need the link to get to, and we'll be broadcasting so you can follow along at home and participate in the meal. Okay, we can do that virtually. Again, I've always maintained that this should not be a for everyone public event. I'm always advocated against, the big hotel style, come one, come all, bring all your friends and family and anybody that wants to have basically dinner and a show. Because that's what they treat it like. It's like dinner and a show. You're going to read the story, you're going to sing a few songs, and you're going to have whatever goofy things you might do on the Passover meal, and everybody comes and they eat this giant meal. Well, no, it's a covenant renewing event. And so I've always been against it being public. So I'm not going to do this and just do it for the public. But if we had people that we knew were coming and they were so if they were coming, they were going to be there for the meal, we could try to make it available to them. Now, if we do that, you need to not give that link to anyone. And by the way, that's on you. Remember, that's your integrity. Remember, we talk about, more than anything else, I think, the idea that this is all about the Father watching to see your level of integrity. Deuteronomy 8:2 is all about integrity. He wants to see whether it's in your heart to have integrity, to keep his commandments or not, okay? So that's one thing we may do. The other thing that we may do is we may do what I used to do in Hebrew school. I remember we did this every year. We had what was called a model Seder. In other words, a Seder that was a model of what a Seder would look like, but we did it on a different day just to walk through some of the elements so that you'd know how this thing actually worked. And it was instructional also for us as Hebrew students, in Hebrew school, for the students, for the kids, to understand what we were doing at home, okay? So we could do something like that a little before, like a couple of days before, a week before the Passover, which is coming up very quickly here. We'll make a decision, hopefully by Shabbat I can announce all these things. And what we would do is that we would do in a public way. Everybody can see it. It won't be the full-blown event, but we'll be walking through saying, and this is what you would do at this point, and this is what you would do at that point, and kind of give an instructional. Because we had a lot of Marco Polos and other people calling in and contacting us saying, well, what do we do for Passover? Okay? Now, some of that information is on the Passover Q&A teaching. So that's something you may want to review. I highly recommend every year that you review that as we get close to Passover, because it covers all the Q&A questions that you would normally have about Passover. 2 parts. The first part deals, with more of the mechanics of it, and the second part deals a lot with the Last Supper and whether it was a Passover and all those kind of things. Okay? So you may want to, make that a priority to review that. All right? So at this point, I think that's going to cover it. So we are not planning at this point. We will give more guidance for the local group. We are not planning at this point to do a gathering here of 100 or more people for the Passover meal, because we do not believe that we will be allowed to. Okay? And so we will have to see. They may not put a mandate by then. We'll have to see. Right now, they're strongly encouraging the CDC guidelines. CDC guidelines is either 50 or 10. I didn't check. I couldn't find where it might have been 10, but it definitely was 50, okay, as of yesterday or the day before. So 50 is still way smaller than we would need, all right? So we'll have to see. We may be able to organize, 2 or 3 smaller groups as we could find places or how we could do it. I don't know. We're still trying to figure this out and adjust to what's happened. But just so that you know, hopefully this helps bring a certain amount of shalom and confidence. Your leadership is on top of this, okay? And I don't just mean me, okay? I mean like all of the leadership is in discussion. We're on top of this. We are paying attention to it. We're in discussions about it with one thing and one thing only in mind. How can we best serve our Elohim and you in doing what he expects us to do? Okay? And so even under this circumstance, we are all prayerfully considering, well, how can we meet the 2 mandates? the one about worshiping and observing and obeying him, and then how do we do it as a group? Okay, that's really what the two great commands are: the individual relationship and the group relationship. All right? And so, we're just working hard on that. So is there any questions about that? Because I know we have the Torah portions, and we read 2 of them, but really, it was a repeat of a lot of stuff. This is more important at the moment. We will still get to the other things, but I want to make sure we answer your questions. Bear in mind, I know I caused more questions to some degree than I answered, because you will get more answers, hopefully, by Shabbat. Okay, so you'll want to listen to Shabbat service. If you don't normally follow our service for the whole service, then at least if you're interested in what we're doing on these things, forward to the part where I make the announcements, and you'll hear me explain what we're going to do about these things at that point. Now bear in mind, it might just be me, the praise team, and a camera crew at that point anyway, so the service should go a lot quicker, and we should be able to get through things in a more quick way. So don't just think, oh, well, normally it's 2 hours in, it might not be this week. It may be quicker. So we'll see how it all goes. All right? Some of the things actually may come up, may take longer. I have no idea. So you'll have to play it through. Do we have any questions online about any of this? Just about this. Okay. Over here, anybody? No. Okay. And you can grab the mic to bring it around if you want. All right, so let's get into the Torah portion, okay? All right. So we've got 2 Torah portions to cover here. And we're going to see what we can do to discuss the things that came up in these 2 portions. We got Vayakhel and Pekudei. Okay? And of course, in years where we have the extra month, then they break them up individually, but in this case they're together, So we begin in chapter 35, and we work our way to the end of the book of Exodus. And of course, next week we start in the next book. So that's going to be very exciting as we move into Leviticus. Okay? All right, well, you'll get to talk about everything you ever wanted to know about sacrifices but was afraid to ask. All right. Anybody want to ask a question or make a comment about chapter 35? Let's deal with chapter 35 first. Okay, nobody in here. Manny, you got anything for 35? All right, get that mic on and.
Okay. Libby would like to know, Exodus 35 is the willingness to give a reflection of our desire for Yah to dwell in our midst. Is there a connection between having a willing heart to contribute/give and wisdom being imbued to build?
Yeah, these things are, well, they're similar in some ways. Because these things are to whatever degree come from him. The wisdom to build is a complete gift or anointing from Yah. The willingness to give is something that's got to be inside of you. So I would call it different from that point of view. But realize that all of us have anointings and gifts. These are the guys who had the anointings and gifts to do the building of the tabernacle. So they had those specific gifts. Okay, the workmanship needed to make the metals and do the gold and the silver work, the woodwork, the cloth work, the dyeing of the materials, all of those things, they had to have those particular gifts. Okay? What else?
Okay, got Philip Mason on 35, verse 1. These are the words which Yahweh has commanded you to do. Oh, I guess it's more of a comment. Are we being careful and diligent to Shema, to hear, to do all the words which Yahweh has commanded us to do?
Excellent.
Amen.
Okay.
And one more for 35. Ben Israel, Exodus 35:3. You shall not kindle a fire on Shabbat. Does that mean we have to eat cold?
Okay. Excellent. Well, first let me just go to what Philip said real quickly. There's an interesting point to make here in connecting that goes to the end of it, which is in chapter 39, it says that they did as Yahweh had commanded. Okay, so this is one of those rare moments where Yahweh commanded them. It says Moses assembled the people together, and it said, these are what Yahweh commanded you to do. And we get to chapter 39, and it says in verse 42 or so, let's see, according to all that Yahweh had commanded Moses, so the children of Israel did all the work. Now, of course, this is important for our vertical structure. In verse 43, Moses looked over all the work, and he saw that they did it. So it was verified They didn't just say, okay, Yahweh said it, yeah, we did it. Well, they didn't just do it any which way or what they thought. There was leadership that had the anointing to look at it and say, you did it wrong, you did it right. And it says that Moses looked at it and saw it, and that what they did, and he said that Moses blessed them. Because he saw that they had done what Yahweh said. It said they did as Yahweh had commanded, so they had done. And so this is, again, part of that whole vertical thing, is that leadership is supposed to be there to observe and to be able to give feedback as to whether or not the thing that Yahweh said was actually done right. Okay, so that's not for everybody, by the way. There's only those that, now you notice it doesn't say that Aaron looked it over, or his sons looked it over, or any of the 70 that got anointed looked. No, this is Moses, the one at the top, looked it over and he said, good job. That's what Yahweh had intended, okay? All right, and then the next comment had to do with the fire. Let's deal with that, okay, because that's in my notes, because not any surprise to me that someone wanted to understand the kindling of a fire. Okay, in the Jewish Talmud, okay, in the instructions of trying to figure out how to apply Torah, there are a list of 39 things that they have decided you should not do on Shabbat, okay? And all of them basically come out of things that were used or done or a part of building of the tabernacle, okay? And so you have to understand that this not to kindle a fire comes right in the midst of the building of the tabernacle conversation. And the reason that I believe it was there, and the reason the Jewish community believes it was there, is because in their zealousness, remember they were giving so much, actually, they were told, hey, we got too much stuff. So Yahweh knew in their excitement and their zealousness, they may decide to keep working on Shabbat. And so the kind of fire that he was talking about kindling here, the type of fire is considered by all of the Jewish sages to be a work fire. Okay? Now, they've taken it Talmudically into more extreme. They're not going to do anything that makes a spark. They want to put fences around a fence. But the literal understanding was that this was a work fire. Okay? And so we are not to be freezing to death and not having any kind of warmth. They had a large part of their journey, 40 years, was in a desert, a wilderness. Anybody ever been in one? What's it get like in the winter at night? Cold. Even in the summer at night, it can get cold. There's nothing to maintain any heat. So they didn't freeze to death. They had fires. The idea was not to kindle one for the purpose of work, because that's why this is embedded, for context-wise, this is embedded within the conversation about building the tabernacle. Okay? Building the tabernacle. Also, the key word here is to not kindle the fire. If you ever made a fire, okay, they didn't just take out their fluid and their lighter and light a fire. They had to actually literally get the kindling and the shavings and spark something and it was a big deal to make a fire. And it takes a while. If you ever made a fire in your fireplace or if you have a wood burning stove, whatever, when you first initiate that thing, it can take a little bit. And to make sure it gets going. Once the fire gets going, keeping it fed is not that big a deal. But starting one, that could be a lot of work. So there's two pieces to this. One is that it was a work fire. The other is that kindling it was a bigger problem. Okay, that was the biggest thing, so not to kindle a fire. So, no, we do not have to be cold. We're not expected to be cold. Okay, you can have warmth. Okay, this is why Jews, for example, won't drive their cars, because they know that the spark that's igniting the gas is, in a sense, creating a fire. I think that still goes into the fences and fences. It's not the actual law. It's creating extra layers of boundaries. Okay, so no, you don't have a problem. Now, let's put it this way. If you have a house that is kept warm by a wood-burning stove, there are a lot of people I know that actually have that. And it's really good, too. It really keeps your house very nicely warm. Start that fire before Shabbat. Try to maintain it throughout the night. If it goes out, yes, you can relight it. But, you try your best to make sure that these things are done. You try to comply with it. But this is not an instruction that just says no fires. Okay? Some people say, well, what about the pillar of fire? Do you have any idea how many square miles the camp was? If that pillar of fire was warm enough to heat up everybody in the camp, the people near it were going to be fried. Okay? Just think about it. The estimate, I can't remember how many square miles it is, but it was square miles is what the somewhat 2 to 3 million people took up in a camp. And you can imagine why other nations were a little intimidated when they showed up. Okay? It wasn't just like you see in, the Ten Commandments movie. It looked like, maybe a few thousand or something. No, there's about 2 to 3 million people. There's a number given here. It's the same number you get in the book of Numbers, 603,550 men. That's men, as you see in Numbers, over age 20. That does not count the ones younger, does not count the women, does not count the children, right? So you have easily extrapolate that out to be at least, 3 times as many more people on top of that? Well, that's almost 2 million people added to the 600. You almost got 3 million people there, 2 to 3 million people. You encamp 2 to 3 million people, that takes up a lot of space. The pillar of fire was not keeping them warm. And it wasn't the point of it. It wasn't there for warmth. It was there for guidance. Okay? It was there for inspiration so they would see it and have confidence. It wasn't there for warmth. Okay? So hopefully that was a long-winded way of answering. But this is one of those verses that pops up always on a regular basis. Go ahead, Sarah Beth.
Okay, so on the same verse about kindling the fire. So when I read it, I was playing on the word fire. Like people talk about their temper, being hot-tempered. Could we extrapolate a deeper meaning, like the next level of interpretation of Scripture? What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that it fits, but I don't think that's what it's talking about. Okay, in other words, kindling a fire like on Shabbat, don't start a fight. Okay, don't ignite a fire. I think that it works. I think that that's a great point. I don't think that's what this is talking about here, because the context in verse 2 had to do with, 6 days' work is done, on the 7th, do not work. Okay, and then the fire is connected to the work. And I think that's because in this coming up instruction that we're going to be reading about, it's all about building the tabernacle. And you know how people are, especially the men of a certain personality type, they want to get the thing done. Okay, the kind of guys you get in a car with and you're going on a long drive and they don't have any thought that stopping is even in the mix. Because they just want to finish what they started and get where they're going. See, and there are those people who are going to be a part of this group. And they wanted to get this tabernacle built. Okay? And so, yeah, you can have that, right? And so he's saying, look, bear in mind, this is right at the beginning as they're about to go into the building of it. 6 days you work. On that 7th day, you're not building anything. That's why there's also the verse that says, that you're going to keep keep the Sabbath even in harvest time and planting time. Because that's another time you think all hands on deck. Everybody, we got to get this crop in before we miss the window of the weather and the time of year, or we got to get it out of the field before it goes bad. He says, you don't work on Shabbat. Okay? And so he makes it really clear with that. Okay, next question.
That was pretty much the last I had for that particular chapter.
All right, let me see if I had another thing in here. Chapter 35. Okay, so 2 things. One is in verse 5, and we see this also in 20 and 29. So the idea of it's our model for giving, okay? Our model for giving is those whose hearts are moved. Okay? Now, the tithing part has nothing to do with your heart being moved. That's obedience. But, we have maaser and we have hatruma. Okay, so the truma is the offering. And so the offering comes from the heart. Okay? And that's very consistent throughout the Scripture. Yahweh says to give as you've been blessed, to give from your heart. And so we see that modeled here. And it's especially interesting in chapter 36 and in verse 6 where they go to Moses and like, we got too much stuff here. Verse 5 says, the people bring much more than enough. Let me tell you, every ministry is looking for that day, okay, when there's more than enough. Of course, there's a bunch of churches in the mainstream that have that, and it doesn't seem to make any difference. But within the Torah Observant Israel body, most of the people are looking for enough just to make it through the month. And so it's hard to give. And I know they'd like to give more. But could you imagine they actually had to turn people away and said, hey, that's more than enough. Make them stop. We have no place to put all this stuff. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, chapter 35, and in the end of the chapter there, let's see, 31, which is towards the end. And he has filled him with the spirit of Elohim and wisdom and understanding. And then verse 1 of chapter 36, you have Batzalel and Oholiab, okay? And every wise-hearted man in whom Yahweh had given wisdom and understanding, and they were also filled with the set-apart spirit to do these things. Look, understand the Holy Spirit was available even back then, not like most of mainstream Christianity thinks it only started with, after Yeshua was resurrected. But these are filled with the Spirit as Yahweh filled them to give them the talents and gifts to do. Okay? And so that's an important piece there. They were filled with the Spirit. And by the Spirit this is not like being possessed by some outside entity. They were given the talents and the gifts, the skills, to be able to perform this particular task. Okay? All right? Because we all know people that do things from their heart. They want to do it. They do it with a lot of effort, and they're just not very good at it. We've all eaten food like that and had to smile and say, oh, yes, it was great. We've all heard people sing and been like, yes, it was wonderful, but our ears are hurting. I mean, there's just stuff, right? People, and so it's not effort here that made the difference. It's not desire that made the difference. He filled them with a talent, okay? And we all have talents. Just recognize that what you love to do may not be that talent. You may have to work very hard to get good at it. Doesn't mean you can't get good at it, but these ones, you've all seen people as you're doing something, and then you see them do the same something, but they do it all of a sudden with ease and effortlessness that you can't even imagine how they do it like that. Because they have a talent you don't have. Doesn't make them better than you. Doesn't elevate them above you. It just means they have a talent for it, okay? And so that's what we're talking about here. So just be careful when we read into these things that we don't read into them the wrong thing, all right? There are people that just have an anointing or a gift or a talent in different areas. I'll give you an example. There was an auto mechanic I used to work with, and everybody that worked with him, they said they couldn't work with him because he didn't have a talent as an owner, as a manager. But they said that they worked with him anyway because they never saw anybody that understood. I mean, he could hear, see, smell, whatever. I mean, he would know what was wrong with the car and know what to do and catch things they would never have thought of. And they learned so much because of that talent. But by the way, notice that in that discussion I just gave you, he didn't have a talent in all of his areas. He had one, okay? And you have at least one. And don't think that it's a big deal because you don't have the one you want. We're going to see that problem with other people as we go further through the story here. People who have a problem because they're not doing what they want to do and not recognizing that they already have a talent to do something they were given to do. Okay? And that's kind of an important piece of this. Okay, that's in chapter 35, and now we can go to 36. Did you have anything in 36? Okay.
I have one for 36. Melissa Mueller, Exodus 36:2, Yah's part, put wisdom inside. Oh, I think it's a comment. Yah's part, put wisdom inside. My part, to be motivated to do the work.
Amen. Okay. Okay. 37.
Do you have one for 37?
Okay.
All right. Anonymous would like to know 37:7 and 22, and a few additional verses regarding this. Is there a significance in such important items being made of one solid piece of metal? I feel there are connections of strength, unity, solidarity here.
Okay. I'm sure there are significances to the functionality as well as the metaphor of things being made out of one solid piece. There's a unity to it that's not multiple pieces all attached together. Obviously, there's a strength that you have in it being one piece. But other than that, like I said, this is not my area of study as far as the tabernacle is concerned. But certainly you can pick those two simple things out of that.
Somebody did ask a late question in 36:1. Can I
I'm
ask
sorry, we don't go backwards. I'm kidding.
that? Mark S. would like to know, in Exodus 36:1, how do we know if we were given wisdom and understanding on a certain matter?
Okay, generally speaking, that is something that the other anointed appointed, whoever the anointed appointed is that you're dealing with, would recognize. I'm sure that lots of people came up to Moses saying, I want to do this, I can do it, and he had to be able to selectively understand who was who. Now, he was specifically given 2 people, okay? But he also said, and there were others who had the heart to do it, but a lot of them were just laborers. They need a lot of hands to make these things. And so they needed ones who had at least the gift to follow instructions without the anointing to know exactly how to do anything, but people that could say, okay, just tell me what to do and I can do what do it the way you want. All right? Okay?
Okay, and I do have one that's kind of a common question between 35 and 36 regarding the building of everything. Libby would like to know, Rabbi, it is the function of the community as a whole to build a house, not physical, for the purpose of Yah dwelling in our midst. Everybody is meant to be a part of building this spiritual house.
Okay. I love that whole idea. I think that there's a lot to be said for it. I think that most of the people involved here, remember, there's 603,000 men. They weren't all helping build this building. Okay? But they all supported the building and the builders. Okay? So let's remember that everybody did their part. Some people's part in this particular aspect of what was going on was to bring materials for it and to encourage. And these people needed to be fed. They needed supplies. They needed all kinds of things. And so everybody had a role to play if they were involved in it. And, you can only put so many people in that space to build this building. It was a fairly large, thing that they were putting together, but you didn't need 600,000 men to do it. Okay? And so forget about the rest of the 2 million that were there. So understand that, yes, I love the idea that, yes, it takes all of us together to build the house. We all have a role in that, though. So understand, so not everybody's role is to be what I'm doing right now. Not everybody's role is to do what my wife did in putting together a children's program, or the ladies with the architectural, skills to actually make a 2-scale tabernacle that you could build, or the artists that draw the cutouts that we use to make the different things. I mean, these are all different levels of skill, all right? And so while my wife was the head or the architect over the whole thing, she had different people with their talents working that she was supervising to bring the thing into the vision that she believed needed to be brought forward. Then that all fits under the vision that I then have. So then you see how this all scales up the line, okay? So everybody has their role to play. And then, by the way, as the body is growing, you can take advantage of what? You can take the Parsha Pearls, for example. You can download it. You can share it with your children, with your congregation, and people can then start to grow together in understanding the plan of the Father. You can point them towards this, our website. You can point them towards these videos. These are all roles that we can play, okay? And again, because we don't sell any of them, I don't have any qualms, telling you that that's a role. It's not about, we're not promoting me, okay? Hopefully you're promoting the message that you believe I was given to share with you when that message didn't come out of me, okay? And then you can share that with other people, okay? All right, because even Yeshua himself said, none of this came out of me, because I only say what my Father tells me to say. I only do it. If Yeshua didn't feel like anything came out of him, I certainly don't feel like anything comes out of me. Okay? It just reminds me of a story that, there was a guy not too long ago that was a part of the congregation that said, I was not qualified. I was not qualified to lead this congregation because I didn't speak in tongues, which meant I didn't have the Holy Spirit, so I was not qualified. And I looked him in the eye. We were sitting at a little restaurant having this conversation. I said, so you mean to tell me that all these teachings that I've done was on my strength and my power? And I started laughing. I said, look, I'm good. I'm not that good. In other words, I have a certain amount of talent. I can speak and do things that have nothing to do with this. I said, But that's an ability and a talent with speaking. But the information that I'm speaking isn't mine. So I don't know why. I'm basically saying, so this is your choice. Either I have the Ruach, or you're telling me that you think I'm that good. Pick one. I backed him into a corner. He didn't answer, but he still felt like I wasn't filled with the Spirit. Again, look, we have a whole teachings that we talk about the whole tongues thing. The tongues thing is not evidence that you have anything, okay? These guys had the Spirit. They didn't start all of a sudden speaking in tongues. It doesn't say that anywhere. They started doing what they were anointed to do. So how do you know someone has the Spirit? Well, if they're doing something they need the Spirit to do. Okay? You hear anointed teaching, then that means that there was anointing that the teacher had in order to do the anointed teaching. And so it was just one of those moments, I had to laugh. I was like, so you think that this is all me. I did this. I can assure you that every week I say stuff that I had no idea till I said it. Okay? And you hear me say that sometimes going, oh, wow, that was good. Write that down, something, because I never thought it till it came out of my mouth. Okay? And those are some tremendous nuggets when they happen. And I take zero credit for that, except I take credit for one thing. I was willing to open my mouth and just let it come out. That's the only credit I'll take, is that I have no filter. Which is a bad thing sometimes, but sometimes it's good. Okay? So I'm willing to just let that stuff come out. My wife is laughing. She's seen the bad filter and the good filter. So, well, the no filter worked good and no worked bad. Either way. Okay? Next question. What else you got?
Well, I just want to add that if I had to choose between you having the Ruach and or being that good, I go with Hebraic thought and say both.
Oh, I appreciate that. Look, you have to have a certain amount of talent. Look, he didn't pick people to make the tabernacle. But hold on, right? But he didn't pick people to make the tabernacle who had never seen a smelting, didn't learn and know anything about smelting metals or didn't know anything about putting cloth together. He picked people that obviously had been doing this and had a talent for it. And so he called me into this not as somebody who's like never spoken before and had, actually I did never speak before I did this. But he knew I could do it. Actually, now that I think about it, Actually, I smoked to groups and did other things in other ways, but he knows what you already have in terms of, yes, you have talents and gifts. Okay? Some of you have really great mechanical skills. There's no surprise that you're, doing the type of jobs that you do, whether it's with cars or with buildings or with plumbing or electricity or whatever it is, where you do things with your understanding of how things work. So you work with things, you make them work, you fix things that don't work. Okay? You have a gift or talent for that. I mean, I remember going with some people who have these type of talents and looking at a property that we were hoping to maybe build something on as far as, like this ministry, right? And we look at this open field and had trees and had brush and all that. And I can't see, I have no vision for that. In other words, I can't picture, oh, wow, the building would look great here and this would look, I need an artist rendering, preferably in a 3D model, okay? But other people that were with me were like, oh, this would be great. I could just see this over here and that over there. And I'm like, I don't see anything. It's a different mind. And then there's things that I see and I zoom out and find things in Scripture and people are like, how did you find that? How did you see that? That's my mind. How did you see what you see? I don't know. That's your mind. And you're given those talents and gifts that you need so that we cover all the things people need. Okay? And by the way, I get how that can be frustrating. It frustrates me looking at an empty piece of land, trying to picture a building there, like it might frustrate you looking at the Word and you don't see the things that I see and say, how does he do that? Well, I feel the same way when you do what you do. How does he do that? Or how does she do that? But yet, I mean, when I'm one of those guys, as my car stops working, I open up the hood and stare at it. I'm like, why am I even staring at it? I'm wasting my time. You know how I deal with when my car stops working? I pick up the phone. That's my only tool I have. I call somebody. You guys, some of you, you open it up, you know right away, you can smell, you can hear the sound, the clicking, the grinding, whatever. You know what to look for. I'm very impressed with that. Okay? And some of you say, oh, well, that's just because you maybe didn't learn that as a kid. But it doesn't matter. I know people learn this stuff as a kid. Listen, how many of you brought your car to a mechanic who jacked up your car because they really didn't know what they were doing? Okay? So it doesn't matter that they were trained. They didn't have a talent for it. Okay? Not at all. My wife and I were driving home from Nashville. When we had 3 congregations back, a long time ago, we were driving back to Knoxville from Nashville, and as soon as we got on 40, I'm trying to think what happened. The gas pedal went. Okay? Like it just went straight to the floor, like nothing. There was no gas. And so fortunately, I was able to drift into the right lane, and we were literally right in front of an exit ramp. Drifted down the exit ramp, pulled over into a gas station that was already closed. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and just went to call AAA. As I'm calling AAA, then they were telling me a car would be coming. A truck pulls up behind me, and I'm like, that's a little quick. I literally was like on the phone. It was a AAA truck who had pulled over waiting for his next call. And he opened the hood and immediately knew there was something that had, basically the idle thing, something that had to do with the idle had come loose. He tightened the little thing up, boom, the pedal, whatever it is, boom, everything worked fine. He fixed it in like a few seconds, didn't have to go to a mechanic, didn't have to take it in, didn't have to tow it or anything like that. And literally, we were like a little concerned that a truck just pulled up behind us. I couldn't see what kind of truck it was. There was no lights in the gas station or anything. I had to get out of the car to see what it was. And it happened to be the AAA guy. I was like, there's no way it shows up that quick. I had not even barely hung up the phone. I think he was just pulling over waiting for this next call. But look at how he was delivered. And he just opened the hood right away. When I told him what had happened, he said, oh, boom, try this. And it was fixed. It was fine. That's a gift and a talent where I sat there in amazement, as maybe you sometimes do during a teaching. And I was like, wow, how did he do that? How did he know? And so don't think your talent is not impressive to somebody else. If they can't do it and you can, it's impressive. All right? Okay, next point, because we're after 10 o'clock. But I talked a little bit long about the virus stuff, so go ahead.
Next questions I have are on 39, though. Is that okay?
All right, let me just hit one more thing on 37. Okay. Some of you are thinking, Rabbi, why don't you just during Olive and Bread just get on the mic and tell stories? We could just do that. Okay. 37 and verse 6, the point that you guys brought up that verse, I just want to say we talked about the, because that was brought up as one of the questions. Just one of the points there is that it was made with clean gold, okay? We're talking about, again, beaten but also clean gold. The idea that we talked about this, about purified for the lid of atonement, purified for some of the things that we're dealing with, clean gold is being used. Okay, it's beaten gold, but also we're dealing with the idea that these things were, in previous verses, told to us that it would be clean gold. And that cleaning comes through the fire, comes through the smelting process that we've talked about in other times. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, go to, let me see if I have anything, 38. Okay, in 38, the only thing I would say before you go to 39 is that these things are all according to the shekel of the set-apart place, which had us to understand that the set-apart place was the standard by which everything else was measured. Okay? So you're using the shekel of the set-apart place as the measuring for what the weight would be of something, and the so you would know. It's the shekel of the set-apart place. So this is the thing to be compared to. It was the measuring stick. Okay, chapter 39.
Okay. 39, I have 2 of them. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, chapter 39, verse 26. What is the significance of alternating the bells and the pomegranates? Anything we need to learn to apply this to our lives?
I have to, first of all, I'm surprised it took that long to get to an Olivia and Janet Hoffman question. Second of all, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question ever before. Look, it's about the way that they just designed the garment so that the bells would be separated enough, they're not going to get tangled in each other. The bells were there as performing an important function. We talked about that last time. Okay, so I wouldn't say that there's any other significance other than function. Okay, if you put the bells all next to each other, anybody hang bells from anything, they would tend to get tangled in each other or some other thing. And so this would just go around the garment. So I think it was more of a functional thing. Okay?
Okay, George Elvira. Shemot 39:34. Is there some significance in the ram's skin dyed red? Maybe Yeshua's blood?
Look, I know everybody wants to look for that everywhere. It certainly could be. I don't think that we have enough information to say that, so. Okay? Because when you think about it, what are we always told that as we understand Yeshua's blood, that somehow this washes us clean, or somehow it gets out the stain as opposed to staining it. So I don't know that that's the right metaphor here. I would just say that I wouldn't read too much into it. Okay?
That's all I had for 39. Next one I have is for 40.
Okay, I have, let's see, what do I have in, okay, the only thing I had in 39 we already covered, which was Moses verifying the work. Okay, go to 40.
Okay, 40, and I only have two more.
Okay, I only have two more also, so it matches.
Works out perfect. Olivia and Janet Hoffman. Rabbi, chapter 40, verse 34. Was the actual presence of the Almighty in the dwelling place when the cloud covered it? Any applications about this in our lives?
And the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the esteem of Yahweh filled the dwelling place. Well, the only connection is that, in 1 Corinthians we're told, do you not know that you are the dwelling place for the indwelling of the Ruach? So that is the direct comparison there, okay? What else?
Oh, the last question I had wasn't, it was a general question regarding this. It was from Pete Lamb, Pete and Brenda Lamb. This reading shows that we have little trouble following the pattern to build things outside ourselves, but struggle when we try to follow his instructions to build the character of Yeshua.
Amen. Amen. Look, in the follow the pattern teaching, which is also when we covered Exodus 25, when they first started talking about the fact that he was given the pattern and to follow it exactly, we made that case and that argument. So, well said, Pete. But that is the whole point, is that if we are to build the physical tabernacle exactly according to the pattern on the mountain, what more building the physical, our own bodies, our beings, according to the pattern given on the mountain, which was the Torah. So absolutely. Okay, anything else over there? No. Okay, so here's the few extras I have from here. One, just as an interesting comment, I noticed it today. This is for those that get sort of bent out of shape a little bit about the way things get worded sometimes in leadership and that kind of thing. It says here, beginning in verse 18, and it's really interesting, it goes all the way to 33. It basically says that Moses did everything, right? It says that Moses raised up the dwelling place and placed its sockets and set up its boards and put in its bars and raised up the columns. And he took the witness and put it in the ark, and he brought the ark into the dwelling place, and he put the table in the tent of meeting, and he put the showbread, and he brought in the altar and the veils, and he lit the lamps, and wow. Do you know how big and how heavy some of these things were? Okay, Moses didn't do all this by himself, but he saw to it that it was done. So when it says that Moses did it, Moses was actively overseeing and supervising all this. Now, there were some things that I'm sure he did himself, the things having to do with the ark, because nobody else would have been allowed to do it, okay? And so as he prepared it for then, after he prepared it, then Aaron and then his sons would be able to do certain things with that. But we have, all of these things, and, he put the altar of burnt offering before the door. The altar, can you imagine how big that was and him doing these things? Yes, he would have needed help, okay? But interestingly enough, it says that Moses did all these things. And he put, and he did, and he placed, and he did. Okay? So just recognize that sometimes in the individual, it is more or less obviously implied that it's not just the one person doing it. But yet, everybody is seen through the lens of the vertical structure, and so it's just addressing the one person. In other words, he made sure that all things were done exactly right. Because a lot of people don't like that kind of authority structure. They don't want anybody to have anything to say about anything. Now, bear in mind, he's not getting involved in their day-to-day lives. He is very involved, though, in the things of Yah. and how you did them or how you didn't do them, and how involved you were and how involved you weren't. So bear in mind that that may also work as a metaphor for congregational interaction when you're actually working in the congregation building and the leadership wants something done and they want it done in a very specific way, and you go and do it the way you would rather do it, and then you get all upset when the leadership comes over and says, that is not the way I intended it to be. And then you get upset instead of recognizing, wait a minute, no, it's the leader's responsibility to oversee and to make sure it's done as if the leader had done it himself. That's the point. They all did as if it was Moses doing it all. In other words, they did exactly the way Moses understood it to be. So that's why it reads, and he set it up, and he did this, and he placed that. And he didn't. I'm sure he was involved, but I'm saying he didn't do it all by himself. Most of the things that are listed here, he couldn't have done all by himself. If you think about when it says right at the beginning that he set up its boards. You know how long these boards were? He couldn't have set that up by himself. Okay? Especially the one that run the full length of the curtains. That was a big piece of wood. Okay? So bear in mind that when you're involved in a project, and this project happened to be the tabernacle, you need to be aware of two things. One is it's the leadership's vision that you're actually being a part of. And two is the leadership has every right and responsibility even to make sure you do it according to his vision, the way he feels it was given to him, because he's trying to do it according to the vision given to him. Now, you may have leaders that you've had in the past, and we've all had them, that it clearly has nothing to do with the vision given to them, it just has to do with them. And you could believe that about any leader, but you have to be careful with that. You have to actually step back, and because you may not get it until you zoom out a little bit and say, oh, I can now see why that is the right way to do it, or why that is important. There are people that have wanted to help me in the past, and I've even been upset when I wouldn't let them volunteer, and they were like, well, I don't understand. You keep saying you need help, but you don't let me help. And because I know they will absolutely fall apart the minute I tell them they did something that wasn't what I wanted. And that's going to happen. Just ask the staff. I fire them all the time. Actually, not much lately. I'll throw it out there every now and then just to remind them. Of course, we do have a policy here that being fired is no excuse not to do your job. Okay. You laugh, but that's a real policy. Okay, so, but you are going to, when you're working with any kind of a structure, you are going to at some point require correction. And correction may not be that you did something wrong, it just may be that you didn't do it the way the person with the vision for it didn't want it that way. They wanted it a different way. Okay? But you'll get offended and feel like, oh, well, it was right. No, well, you thought it was right, but not the way they wanted it. Yeah, but the way I want it is right. Well, right and wrong has nothing to do with it. It's their vision. If it's wrong and it blows up, then it's their problem. Okay? Now, you can make suggestions, but you can't just do it the way you think you should. Okay? That's like the person I used to remember, I tell this story all the time, who used to work at the deli. Person would come up and order their sandwich with mayo. The person believed it should have mustard, so he made it with mustard. It's like, well, no, but the customer ordered it with mayo. You can't just put mustard because you like it that way. Yeah, but it's wrong to put mayo on that. That's what the customer wanted. But literally, my friend worked at that deli, and he said that the guy who worked with him would make the sandwich the way he wanted, no matter what the customer asked for. I was like, how did he not get fired? Okay, and so this, I think, is a part of what you see here. It's implied that Moses did all these things because everybody did it as if he did it. Everybody worked together, so it was as if Moses himself had done it. So when you're doing something and there's leadership, and we're talking about a ministry sort of situation, you should do it the way whoever's in charge. It could be me, it could be somebody who's in a different position, that whoever's in charge of that particular thing, you want to make sure you're doing it the way they want it done. And if you're not sure, you need to ask them. So that is being done according to the vision they have for it, all right? Amen? Okay, last point. In chapter 40, right at the very end, starting of 36, and when the cloud was taken up from above the dwelling place, the children of Israel went onward, and they left. Okay, so, but if the cloud was not taken up, they stayed. And this is the important thing. They followed the cloud. Okay, they saw as Yahweh, they were following Yahweh as he was moving. Okay? And so this is an important thing as we're looking at it to say, okay, you need to figure out if there's a cloud anointed. In other words, there's an anointing of Yah where you are. There may have been at one point where you are. Maybe you weren't going to a congregation and all that was going on. And then all of a sudden, a different leader comes into play, something changes in some way, and you feel like some of you felt that way about the churches you were in, and you realize, wait a minute, that wasn't a cloud I was looking at. There was something else going on. It just felt like I was in an anointed place. I just didn't have good glasses to see through to realize it was just fog or something, okay? Some of it was so bad it was more like smog. It was just, but it wasn't the cloud, all right? Okay, but you need to look for that anointing. And then when it's there, you need to say, but if the cloud wasn't taken up, then they did not set out till the day it was taken up. So you find a place with the cloud, you stay. Okay? This is important. And what we're talking about here is not the physical manifestation of looking outside the building for some sort of phenomenon, like a column of air, whatever. But we're talking about seeing Yah's anointing in a place. Okay, seeing his anointing in a place. And that's the important piece. All right, amen? Amen. All right. I think that's going to cover for here. And I think we're good now to go ahead and close up. Did you have anything else over there? No? Okay,
Everything's pretty much done over here. But I did want to thank you for that small epiphany regarding following instruction and making sure we do your vision and, all that. It just gave me a small epiphany of how ultimately this is all practice. This is all practice. So I wrote down kind of what you said, but it says we were to oversee Torah as if the master is doing it himself. I thought that was so good.
Amen. Look, there's times when I've had to mention to people, and it's hard because it comes out wrong. But I've had to say to people, you need to understand all of this is mine. By mine, I mean my responsibility for a vision that I was given. Not mine meaning it's mine. See, that's how it can come across wrong. But if you are here in any aspect of MTOI, I'm responsible for what I believe he has shown me he wants that to look like. And so while you do delegate and you do allow people to do certain things, they always have to be in line with understanding, making sure that what they're doing lines up with that vision. Okay? And so you have to be willing to allow the person who has the vision that you're working. By the way, this could be in a company that you work at. Okay? If that company has a president or that company has an owner, if it's a small business, it doesn't matter that you think the boss is wrong or the owner's wrong, it's his business. Now, but you can always, see if it's even feasible, if he'll allow for you to have a discussion, say, look, I have an idea. You do it respectfully. I have an idea to how we can make things a little better. Maybe this would work differently. I know we've been doing something a certain way for all this time. All right? Okay? But you don't just do it any which way you want, because that'll only get you in big trouble. And it doesn't matter if you were right either. Okay? So it doesn't mean that I will never be wrong and there are people that would be taking the vision in a different direction will never be right. It simply means that it's the wrong process. If you see something, you're to go and give counsel. It says out of an abundance of counsel, things get done correctly. So I'm always open to counsel. You can always come to me and say, I've got a thought about what we're doing that may be better some way, or may be able to accomplish things more effectively or something. Okay, so I'll listen. But then ultimately, the decision that's made has to then be complied with. That's the hard part. Okay? That's the hard part. Look, if the body is ever going to, well, we know what's going to happen. Let's just use the example of what's really going to happen. Yeshua is going to show up. Guess what's going to happen when Yeshua shows up? Everybody's going to have to come in line with him. No more individual groups. No more little kingdom buildings. No more little whatever, okay? Everything's going to have to come under compliance, under authority, under him. And we're not practicing that hardly at all in the body now. Now at MTOI we are to a small degree because we have a handful of congregations that are assembling together in an organization that does allow for there to be vertical structure. And in that structure, we have leadership meetings. And in those meetings, it is not just a bunch of yes people just there to tell me how great I am. They're there to speak their mind, but they're also there to respectfully allow me to make decisions. And I make those decisions highly respecting the people that I'm sharing those decisions with, knowing that there's a responsibility there. But somebody has to make a decision. You know, in the Jerusalem Council, and by the way, we need a Jerusalem Council. Okay? In the Jerusalem Council, did Peter make the decisions? No. Did John make the decisions? No. Paul showed up. Did he get to usurp and make decisions? No. Who made the decisions? James. Anybody argue with him? No. Once he made the decision. Now notice, though, that he didn't say a word till everybody spoke. In Acts 15, everybody's speaking, everybody's arguing. And then he said, okay, tell you what, this is what we're going to do. And that was the end of the discussion. He listened, he took counsel, he saw what was going on, and made a decision. And it was a brilliant decision. Okay? And it wasn't brilliant because James was brilliant. It was brilliant because he had a job to do and he was given an anointing to do the job. That's why he was brilliant. Okay? Because all of them, you know, thought they were fearing Yahweh. All of them thought they were in compliance. All of them thought they were doing what was pleasing. Look, just like it says, there were those who are thinking they're doing Yah's work and they're going to turn you in to get killed or arrested or whatever it is. But he was actually anointed for the position. You know? And Paul showed up because he knew that James was. So when he was told he needed to show up, he showed up. He didn't have to show up. There was so much distance back then between where Paul was and where Jerusalem was. He could have just said, tell James to go, whatever. Okay? I'm busy. I got a bunch of congregations over here. What was James going to do? Run over there and, you know, grab him by the neck and tell him? Paul said, I'm going to show up and I'm going to, come and I'm going to hear what has to be said and I'm going to make my case and, be respectful of the authority. We don't have this yet. And we're not going to have it before he gets here, but I think we should have it at least making some effort in that direction. Because when he gets here, he's coming with a rod of iron because we're going to need he's going to need to have one. He's going to have to bang some heads and say, just so you remember, I'm actually in charge. Okay? You're not the one actually in charge. I am. Okay? Yeshua's going to have to make that clear. And not just as we think to like the presidents and the heads of countries or whatever they call them, they could be kings, they could be presidents, they could be chairmen, they could be whatever they are, right? It's not just, we think those are the guys he's going to have to say, hey, you're not in charge. It's going to be within the body too. Oh, you thought you were in charge. No, you're not in charge. And you never were. You were always a part of an alignment. Now you had responsibility, and because of that responsibility, you had authority to do what you had authority to do, but you were never in charge. This was never yours. All those guys out there are afraid that, well, somebody's stealing my sheep. They were never your sheep. People ask me all the time, well, doesn't it bother you these people left and they go here, or these people come from there? Look, that's their journey. I only worry about the ones in the seats in front of me now. I can't be responsible for everybody that goes somewhere else who does whatever they do. I'm just responsible for what I share with you while you sit here. Amen? All right, amen. Okay, we could just go on and on. Just getting started. Well, it's after 10. I'm finally waking up. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead since you've got a mic, and that way we don't have to go. Well, you got the mic. Somebody over here want to close us in prayer? Well, you wanted to close us, right? Or open us before? All right, let's go ahead and bring Chuck the mic. Let him go ahead and close us. All right, go ahead and close us up.
Abba, Father, we thank you for this time in study. We ask that you would just open our hearts and our minds, that we would take whatever has been presented, that we've studied, and internalize it and make it part of our lives, part of the Mishpachah. We thank you in the name of your Son, our Messiah, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, if you want to wave goodbye, come on up here. And I'm going to wave to everybody on there. How many did we get today? I know it looked like 295 or something. Yeah, I think got up to like 290 something. Fantastic. So we're reaching a lot of people. By the way, we're up to 22,000 subscribers. If you're on now and you have not subscribed, please subscribe. It does help us get better positioned on the sidebar on YouTube. Okay? Hey, darling. All right. So what we're going to do is on 3, we're going to wish everybody a Laila Tov, which is good night. A Shavua Tov, have a good week, and we're going to tell them that we love them. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, wait.